Why don't Americans save money anymore? During the tariff war, a big reason stocks dropped was foreigners selling. Given they own over $60 trillion of U.S. assets, they were the tail wagging the dog. When foreigners got nervous, American markets plunged. Now, part of this is terrible trade deals, but a big chunk is Americans do not save money anymore. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, Americans currently save just 0.6% of gross national income. In the 1990s, it was 7.5%. In the 1960s, it was 12.5%. So what happened? Mainstream media focuses on consumer culture, so media gratification, advertising, credit cards. In other words, we are the problem. But of course, we had all this in the 1990s and even in the 1960s. So the 90s were the me decade. The 1969 Summer of Love is the definition of immediate gratification. Advertisements in the 60s were on everything. And by 1969, over half of Americans had a credit card. By the 1990s, they were as ubiquitous as today. Reality, we can trace the low savings rate to three things: stagnant wages, generous welfare, and above all, artificially manipulated interest rates by the Federal Reserve. So the wages and welfare combination actually has a name, the poverty trap, as in the more generous welfare gets, the less people work. They may as well kick back on the couch. In fact, if you work, you lose the benefits, so you are stuck. Now, when illegals push back-breaking jobs to minimum wage, all the more reason to sit back. Recent videos I've talked how wages stagnated for the young and blue collar starting in the 2000s, to the point they are the first generation in 250 years who do not out-earn their parents. Now, part of this is mass migration competing for jobs, dragging wages down to third world. Part is trade deals that opened our markets, but didn't open theirs. And part is the relentless march of regulations that wiped out small businesses, as well as the relentless march of benefits that buy votes by being people not to work. Put them together, and the net worth for the bottom half of Americans has been stagnant since 1989. There has been zero growth. While the poverty trap went to work on the poor and young, the middle class, meanwhile, got run through the interest rate wood chipper by the Federal Reserve. So between the 1950s and 2000, the average Fed funds rate was 5.8%. It's the interest rate. Since 2000, it's 1.9%, so 3 times lower. Adjusted for inflation, it's actually been negative since 2000. In other words, banks were paid to borrow money. This did 3 things. It gutted the return on savings. So for most of the period since 2000, banks have paid fractions of a percent on deposits. After all, why pay you when they're getting it free from the Fed? Second, of course, low rates drive inflation, most spectacularly under Joe Biden. This turned those fractions of a percent negative, so you're actually losing money by saving it. Third, low rates did a number on income inequality, driving up the price of assets from stocks to housing. That slammed the door on the biggest traditional savings pool, your house, your home equity. This rained trillions upon boomers, trillions they never earned, and it destroyed the young who are currently doom spending their way to debt slavery. So what's next? Brought to you by OnChain.com. It'll take 3 things to get Americans back to saving: jobs that pay more than welfare, interest rates that reward savings, and controlling federal spending so the Fed doesn't need to force rates down. Now, Trump's doing his best. At this point, Congress needs to get off its butt. Read the rest with charts and all the gory details at ProfSaintAnge.com. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.